Alright, y'all, we back with another video. So, as you already know, on the JP version of Jujutsu Kaisen, we did get information that we were going to be having a rerun of course, the JJK0 collab. And, of course, on top of that, we were going to be receiving some buffs of old characters. And, of course, one of the old, well, a couple of the old characters are actually going to be the collaboration units. The only ones that we're specifically going to be talking about today is mainly going to be the SSR characters. Maybe I might go over the SRs. Nah, probably not. I'm probably just going to be talking about only the SSR characters for the JJK0 collab, which is going to be Yuta and Geto. So we're going to start off with Yuta because I mean I'm pretty sure everybody wants to know what were his changes and what did he get, right? Because in my opinion, this character did have some parts that were lacking to him. Now people might feel like he's a flawless character. Oh, he's so good. He's all that. I'm gonna tell you straight up, no, this motherfucker has like a couple of issues wrong with him that they definitely needed to touch up on when you kind of compare him to other DPS characters. But now with these current changes, I definitely think that is going to be changing, right? The characteristic itself does not change, right? So when Black Flash is performed, obviously you'll increase your Black Flash rate, which is very good for this character, and you'll see why in just a bit. So let's go on with skill 1. So skill 1 at level 10 is going to do 180%. Now this is pre-adjustment. Now post-adjustment with the new buff, he's going to be dealing 270% melee physical damage to the selected enemy. That is a major increase. That's 100% more. So your single target attacks are definitely going to feel a little bit more impactful than they were previously. His skill 1 definitely didn't have that much damage or oomph to it, if I had to be honest. A lot of the times when you were kind of killing stuff, that's just because you had stacked like multiple buffs, with Yagas and stuff. That's the only reason why your skill 1 even managed to kill things. But this definitely is going to make it hit significantly harder, so you're definitely going to be feeling it when you are trying to get through the early waves. Now we're going to have our skill 2, which is Curse Speech. So this was, in my opinion, one of the most dead skills in his entire kit that you wouldn't really use that much. Because for one, obviously, it's going to decrease all enemies' crit hit resistance, which you don't really necessarily need that too much. And on top of that, it has a low modifier. And yeah, sure, it's a good AoE. But is it really worth the 20 cursed energy? No, not necessarily when you literally have skill 3 right there. So it just wasn't worth. Also, it says depending on the jujutsu of the enemy's remaining HP, you'll instantly kill the enemy. This is never going to happen in like almost any scenario. So now we're going to see the post adjustment, which honestly, I'm actually very pleased and surprised by how they did manage to go about this. So now then, we have the post adjustment, which is basically after the buffs. It's going to deal 150% jujutsu damage to all enemies. Keep in mind, this is an AoE skill, right? Depending on how much own cursed energy has when the skill is activated, you'll additionally increase jujutsu damage by 90%. Obviously at the max increase at 60 curse energy. So if you have 60 curse energy when you use it, then obviously that's going to be the max increase of it. So overall, that's already really amazing, right? It has already so much more value. Just this part alone is already more value than what you were getting from its pre-adjustment. So now the skill doesn't feel as dead as it was previously, but there's more to it, because it is a debuff skill. So here we have increases all jujutsu damage received by 14% for 2 turns, right? This is going to be obviously a debuff to all the enemies. So now this is just base curse damage rather than, of course, crit resistance, which is not really necessarily that much needed. So this is already amazing because now you could just debuff him before you're about to ult with his own skill 2. That makes him so much more viable in trying to take things down, considering this character doesn't really have a buffing skill in his kit. Then on top of that, depending on how much earned curse energy has when the skill is activated, you'll increase your curse damage received by 35%. So instead of it just being, of course, 14%, you can increase it to 35%, right? And now it is stackable, right? But since you're going to be using the ult on that turn, on one of the turns, you're essentially only going to be able to debuff them one time, right? So you're usually going to be using this skill one time before you debuff them, but you have to make sure you have enough curse energy. So that way you get the maximum debuff, but it's still good because it's better than what you had previously. It was just crit resistance or whatever. That shit was complete trash. So I'm glad that they made this change because now you actually have like more viability with this character using reliability, excuse me, using the skill 2. So now you can actually even spam this if you really wanted to, just to continuously keep debuffing all the enemies and doing all damage to all the enemies. So definitely Curse Speech is way, 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 way better than it is before. And then obviously it still has the execution, but I'm not gonna lie to you, this shit is completely useless. You're probably not gonna ever proc this condition whatsoever. Now we have the skill 3. Let's do this together, Rika. So this was probably the only skill in his entire kit that was actually usable, and that's because it has a high modifier. So it did a lot of damage to enemies that you targeted with, of course, because it's single target. But now you have a post adjustment. Now, I don't really care too much about this post adjustment. The difference is not really that much. Like it's basically a couple percentages. You're not going to really notice it in the grand scheme of things. So I don't feel like they needed to touch this up at all. Maybe if they had, considering now you want to have a lot of curse energy for your skill too, I kind of wish that they lowered the requirement for this skill and kind of made it like 25 or 20 at least. So that way you can at least save 10 curse energy or even 20 in the long run, you know, over the course of the turns that pass. But I mean, it is what it is. It's still going to be an amazing move to do damage to a single target. And then obviously you have your Curse Speech to do debuffs. But I feel like you're going to be using your Curse Speech more frequently than you will be using your skill 3, just because obviously applying that debuff to the enemy before you actually nuke is going to be the best way to go about it. Now, obviously there is going to be his ult, and his ult didn't get any changes. I still don't really like his ult. Being unable to fill ultimate skill gauge is such a detriment. Now, let's talk about the passive. So previously, he did have the heals, and of course, he had the counter attack. Now, in the post adjustment, they didn't change anything of those. Although I really wish that they did change the heal and kind of make it to where he can heal himself, because I feel like there is going to be some points and times where he's the one getting hit and he's just not counter attacking, and you're just going to have to rerun the whole fight again just to continuously keep doing that to make sure that your team is staying alive. Because if he's the one getting hit, then are you really getting heals? Not really. I don't know. I feel like the heals are just okay sometimes, and then sometimes they cook really hard. It's very dependent. Then obviously the counter attack I feel like is like the most useless thing in my opinion. I rarely had an enemy like attack me, and when they did attack me, it's almost never procced. I feel like it's too low. Other people might disagree with me. I don't care if you disagree. I'm literally telling you from my experience that this hasn't procced that often for me, so I just don't really feel the impact of this even being in his kit. But they did add an additional passive, which honestly, in my opinion, is going to be a game changer in how you play him, right? So now they added the Zone Outburst, which is going to increase your own curse damage by 20% 3 turns when the Black Flash is performed. So I'm going to assume that this is going to be stackable, which means that you can, on your let's do this together, Rika, you can Black Flash on this since it is a multi-hit. There is a chance to hit 3 Black Flashes and just get that buff straight off the bat and just do as much damage as possible on your ult, right? Like it would be crazy, right? Like what you would probably do is you'd probably use your let's do this together Rika, get some damage in. You want to make sure you have like at least 100 curse energy. You use your skill 3, get a couple Black Flashes in, and then of course use your skill 2 to debuff all the enemies, and then just ult, right? So you'll still have at least like what, like two stacks of this buff, and you'll still get a lot of damage. I'm pretty sure there's other ways of playing around it, but that's just the one that I thought of on the top of my head. Other than that, I feel like they did a really good job in obviously fixing up the issues with the character, and that was mainly obviously like his clear. His clear wasn't too crazy. You would have to use your skill 3 to do clearing, and you had to have at least 2 dupes to be able to use your skill 3 twice in those early turns. But I definitely think with the skill 2 and how they made it, I feel like you're definitely going to be able to use this for clearing, just because it does have it's not that crazy modifier, but the fact that he can increase his curse damage by up to 90% when you have enough curse energy is crazy. And on top of that, while also increasing the amount of damage they take, yeah, GG. By the way, him having that debuff is actually going to be insane for his damage output rather than having the crit hit resistance, which is complete whatever. It's like nobody uses that. Now then, let's actually talk about the next character, and then obviously the next character is going to be Geto. So as you know, I am a Geto enjoyer. I love Geto to like, I don't care. People can say he's shit. I do not care. I use this motherfucker anyways, okay? Whenever I could use him, I will use him. So he's a blue attacker. Now, obviously, the role attacker does not matter because he's actually mainly more so a debuffer. So let's actually talk about what they changed about him. So obviously, his characteristic is going to remain unchanged because there was no issues with that. Every Geto has this characteristic, and it's a really amazing one to be able to gain 20 cursed energy on top of what you're going to be gaining for your every action, which is definitely going to keep your cursed energy, management really high. Now let's talk about the skill 1 because he's got basically a buff to practically everything in his entire kit. So he's going to be so much better than he was previously. So let's talk about his skill 1. So his skill 1 at level 10 is going to deal 180% melee physical damage to selected enemy. And then obviously the higher your own curse energy is, the greater the crit hit rate boost. Now, in the post adjustment, which is basically the buff, you're going to increase your own crit hit rate by 5%. So no matter what, you always increase it by 5%. And then the higher your own curse energy is, the greater the crit hit rate boost, up to 65%. 65%. That is insane. You only need to be at 60 cursed energy, which isn't hard to do for a Geto character because he gains so much cursed energy anyways. It's like, what the fuck? 65% is insane. Now it's not like crazy insane, right? But it's super good, right? Considering it's just his skill 1. And then on top of that, you're going to be dealing 180% melee physical damage to the selected enemy. And then depending on how much curse energy you have when the skill is activated, you additionally increase physical damage by 60%. The max increase at 60 energy. So as long as you're above 60 cursed energy, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage with your skill 1, increasing your crit rate and also increasing your taijutsu damage, which honestly kind of feels very relative and similar to the actual green Geto that we already have in the game. On top of that, he will increase his own Jujutsu damage by 15% for 3 turns if own curse energy is 60 or above. This definitely is stackable. It has to be stackable, right? So that's like, bro, this skill 1 is so amazing. You don't even realize how amazing it is. This is gonna help you like just like stall and kind of like hold your curse energy until you get to the final stage where you want to be using it, right? Obviously not counting like tower stages. Tower stages, you're probably not going to be using this depending on the situation. You might just go straight off the bat using skill 2, but his skill 1 is infinitely better than his previously, bro. Oh my god, this skill 1 definitely is going to feel just like Green Ghetto's skill 1. It's going to feel very powerful, impactful. It's going to feel like it's tearing through the enemies because he's increasing his own damage. He's increasing his own crit hit rate. He's increasing the amount of damage that he does with the skill as well to the enemies. And it's, you only have to be above 60 curse energy. That's going to take you like what, 2 turns or something like that, bro? That's easy. Holy shit, is skill 1 so good. Now let's talk about skill 2, Curse Spirit Manipulation. So as you know, this is probably the skill that you use very often. So previously it was 270% range resistance damage to the enemy, and then if your curse energy was above 30, then you decrease the amount of taijutsu damage that they do by 32%. And then obviously if your own curse energy is 40 or above, then you'll obviously increase the amount of jujutsu damage that they receive by 33% for 3 turns. So you would spam this a lot, and if the enemy uses physical based moves and you're using a curse based team, he is overperforming there because obviously you were basically taking less damage from that enemy while also increasing the amount of damage that you do to that enemy. That's what makes this Geto really good, is his skill 2. Now he has a buff to his skill 2, which I'm not gonna lie is actually so fucking good that I honestly I have no words for it. So previously it was 270%. So now let's keep tabs on this new one, right? So he's going to deal 333% range jujutsu damage to select an enemy 3 hits. So obviously it's already 100, almost like, I don't know, like 70%, 80% better. So yeah, GG. And I mean 8% like range curse damage better, not like overall. And then it decreases the select enemy's taijutsu damage by 28% for 3 turns. So before it was 33%, right? So now you have a lower, like a minimum ceiling. Like your minimum is a lot less, but depending on how much curse energy you have when the skills activate, increases damage decreased by up to 35%. So even though it has a lower like number, like overall at starting, the ceiling is slightly bit higher by 2%. So yeah, I don't really think that's much of an issue. On top of that, if you see right here, it says max increase at 60 curse energy, right? So practically everything in his kit is going to be needing him at over 60 curse energy. But on top of that, it says the minimum of 31% increase at 25 curse energy. You're going to have 25 curse energy no matter what. That's how you activate the skill, which means you're always going to have 31%. So even though this says 28% here, it doesn't matter. It's essentially working at the same kind of increase, right? decrease, excuse me, decrease to the enemy regardless. Like it's still good. Like bro, it's just already better. I mean, I feel like all this was unnecessary, but I guess they wanted to play into his kit. I feel like they should just straight up just said, okay, decrease the enemy's taijutsu damage by 35%, 3 turns done. But I guess they wanted to make it unique still, and kind of like how he already plays based on his curse energy. Then increases the selected enemy's jujutsu damage received by 25% for 3 turns. Okay, so previously you would increase it by 33%, but now it's 25%. But depending on how much curse energy he has when the skill is activated, increases damage received by up to 50%. So you'll get 50% at 60 curse energy, which is not going to be hard to do. You're going to be maintaining that once you get to the end stage, and you're just been like, if the fight has waves, you're going to be using skill 1 very often, so you're going to be holding that for a while. Then when you're actually going to nuke, you're going to be spamming your skill 2, so that way you can increase the amount of damage that they take. And yeah, GG, you're going to get 150%. Essentially, right? 150%, because you're going to stack it 3 times, and you're going to be getting that damage received by 50%, and obviously you're going to be gaining your 10 curse energy from your turns, and then obviously 20 from your characteristics. So yeah, GG is going to be relatively easy to spam this shit. And yeah, bro, this shit is crazy. Minimum 35%, by the way. 35% is the minimum at 25. So yeah, it's already significantly better than what it was previously. Not only is his minimum just basically better, his ceiling is even better. So it's like, yeah, they just buffed it all out. And then we have his skill 3. So his skill 3 obviously did just damage, and then you did more damage based on how much curse energy you have. Now they changed it entirely. It has even more to it. It's insane. Now I really wish they kind of managed the curse energy cost a little bit better, but it's completely fine. It's like whatever. He's still significantly better than he was before, and I have no problems with how they did to him. Increases own damage by 10%, already good. And then based on how much curse energy you have, you can increase the damage up to 100%. So at 60 curse energy, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage. So you're always going to be wanting to have this character have at least more than 60 curse energy when you're doing anything, which is not hard for Geto characters. Then he'll deal 200% range jujutsu damage to all enemies, and then increases all the enemies damage received by 10%. So now you have an AoE debuff, and it's just damage taken, right? It's not like it's restricted by obviously needing to be curse or physical or anything. It's just all damage taken. Depending on how much curse energy you have when the skill is activated, you'll increase the damage received by 30%. Keep in mind, you can stack it. Yeah, GG, by the way. Actually fucking GG. So yeah, I fucking love what they did to his kit. His entire kit is just works so much better. Now hopefully he doesn't have any cursed energy issues. I don't think he will, just because obviously you, like I said, you're gonna be gaining your characteristic, you're gonna have your passive, you're gonna be having your turns passing. So I feel like you should have at least over 60 cursed energy. With the skill 1, it's definitely going to help you proc your passive a lot more, since he has to be the one to kill them to activate absorption. So yeah, definitely a lot better. Then we have his ultimate. So as you know, I really hate his ultimate, because his ultimate really was restricted by the fact that you only do 329%, and then it was conditional to do more damage, which in the grand scheme of things, I think you only get to like 700 or 800% overall, which is like with it's conditional, like conditional to even get that much damage. It's really trash, because I think it's like 3% extra damage every time for each cursed energy or some shit. So it's like it really wasn't that big of a boost to it anyways. So it was like conditional to just do normal damage that Gojo does. So it was like really bad. But now, and also on top of that, you lose your cursed energy. But they changed it, and it's like godly, holy. So increases your own damage by 20%. And then based on how much curse energy you have, so you won't always have 60, right? You'll increase your damage by up to 200%. That's already better. Already better. But on top of that, he deals 760% range jujutsu damage to all enemies. This is base, right? There's no condition to it or anything. Now it's already double the damage that he had previously. He's going to be just dealing that base, no conditions, nothing. Just straight off the bat. That's how it should have been since the beginning. And increases own jujutsu damage by 30%. Now, obviously, it cannot be stacked, but I mean, it's still good, right? It's still 30% jujutsu damage. And you reduce your cursed energy by 60 when the ultimate skill is performed. So that's good, because overall that means that you're not going to be completely dry out of cursed energy. Previously, that was the issue. You would use your ult, and then you would lose all your cursed energy, and yeah, essentially you only had the cursed energy that you were gaining back. And on boss stages, there's not anything to kill, so you only have to rely on your characteristic and of course your turns to actually get back curse energy. So it's like it was really a hassle, but now they kind of fixed it a little bit, so you only reduce it by 60, and of course it's a Geto, so he does go a little bit over his curse energy as well. Not bad. Then his passive, it still remains the same. I don't feel like they needed to change any of this because this is kind of essentially every Geto passive. Overall, I'm really pleased with Getos. Now, Yuta definitely had a good buff, but I feel like, damn, they really did an overhaul on Geto. They made him significantly better, and I can't wait to test him out and see how he plays and functions. But just what I see on paper, he looks amazing. Yuta, they did fix a lot of the issues that he had previously that I had with him, in my opinion. But yeah, anyways, these buffs are actually insane. I'm not going to go over the SR characters. The SR characters, people are probably still not going to use them because they're probably just going to overhaul their modifiers. But the issue was not their modifiers. It was just the fact that they just didn't have skills that were needed, right? Anyways, I appreciate you guys for watching the video. That's going to be the buffs. I really think these buffs are way better than the first batch of buffs that we've gotten for old characters, and they definitely actually weren't afraid to make changes with the characters. I feel like the other times they just kind of just increased the modifier a little bit, and that's it. They didn't change any of the skills or anything to actually make the character better, when the issues most of the time is not the modifiers, but more so the skill itself. Unless you're Maki, the modifiers are just stupendously low, right? But yeah, anyways, see you guys in the next one. Peace.